Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted, as always, by #basketball.com, your home for the best fantasy basketball tools on the internet and easily the best interactive schedule that will show you the week ahead every single week for the entirety of the season. I use it more than once a week, even though you probably only need it once a week. I find myself needing it way more than once a week just to see who's playing. That's on #basketball.com. Go check them out. I am your host, Mike Catron. And joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
I was still throwing scheduleness. I just had nothing to say.
Listen, the schedule on #basketball.com is definitely, like, there's not a better one out there. There just isn't.
No, and I mean, shout out to Joey because he's been doing this for, man, how many years now? At least 6 or 7?
Yeah, it's a really good team over there. Joey puts a lot of work into that website. Mark Roberts obviously puts a lot of work into the projections there. I get them props. Like, I was using them before they were sponsoring us, that's for sure.
No doubt about that.
But that is enough, because I'm pretty sure our listeners, if you've been listening to this podcast, you already know about #basketball.com. And I'm sure you also know about our upcoming mid-season I Need a Second Chance League. Tyler, you're going to be setting that up pretty soon, right?
The plan is we're about 10 days out from starting the draft. So, yeah, it's coming fast.
Yeah, that's really soon. So we do have a few spots left in our I Need a Second Chance on Life and also a second chance on fantasy basketball. But this league will only give you a second chance on fantasy basketball, probably not your actual life. Listener League, that's the official name of it. And you can join on patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Subscribe, and you will be able to get access and first dibs on joining our mid-season draft in our mid-season listener league, along with a bunch of other exclusive content. And you get to hear these podcasts before they are released on the regular podcast stream. So our subscribers get the heads up, the early birds, I guess, to our waiver wire, buy low, and sell high podcasts. So go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. And let's talk about some of those buy low candidates. Quite a few guys kind of hitting that. I don't know, we're about a fourth of the way into the season. Is that right?
Well, let's see. Most teams have played a little bit over 20 games. So, I mean,
almost.
We're probably getting closer to 30 than we are 25.
There you go. I mean, it's about a fourth of the way into the season. Guys who started hot probably came back down. And this goes back to Mark Roberts' projections, right? And the reason why Mark Roberts' projections, and there was somebody did a kind of an analytic look. Now there wasn't a huge sample size, so you can always tell when someone's like a statistician or like really takes statistics seriously when they're like, well, the sample size is too small and that we can't get an accurate reading. That's someone who's trying to not lie to you with numbers. And this person pretty much ranked, and this was on Reddit, on the Fantasy B-Ball subreddit, had Mark Roberts as one of the more, I wouldn't say trustworthy, but more accurate is probably the better word, year after year projections, just based on the history of the small history of Mark Roberts' projections on #basketball.com. So that is not a surprise because Mark Roberts bases those projections on what that person has done for most of their career with a little variance. And as we talk about in these buy lows and sell highs, that's usually where these players end up. Karl-Anthony Towns had a terrible start. Obviously, there's the Jimmy Butler issue, but Karl-Anthony Towns is probably going to finish in the top 10. Like there's not going to be a huge variance to a lot of these guys, and that's why buying low and selling high is really important. It's easier to buy low than sell high, though, in my opinion, Tyler.
Yeah, I guess that's fair to say, in the sense that some guys don't want to buy the hottest commodity out there. And I don't know, sometimes you can fool people though. Like we're going to talk about some sell highs in another episode where I think that if they're doing the right categories, they're easier to sell. Let's put it that way. If they're doing things in the right categories, they're a little easier to sell than if they're doing them in the smaller categories, right? The steals, the blocks, the threes. If they're doing them in the points, the rebounds, the assists, that things that aren't sustainable, they're a little easier to sell.
Yeah, and even on the flip side of that, like when one of my players is playing really, really well, it's hard for me to let him go. And I'm guilty of that. I'm sure a lot of people are guilty of that, but that is not how you make trades to achieve a better team. You gotta sometimes let some of these guys go. So it is, in my opinion, just easier to find the good players who are playing bad versus letting go one of these outstanding, short-term players for what seems like a lesser player, but in the end, like Mark Roberts' projections, everything comes right back to that normal mean. And these guys right here, they're having a bad few weeks. And their values are actually kind of dropping right now. And one of those players is Chris Middleton. So Chris Middleton having really a very good year to start out. But over the last, I'd say couple weeks or so has kind of fallen off a little bit. And I will give you this. The average fan, Chris Middleton, is not it's probably not a huge Chris Middleton backer. You know what I mean? Like the average fan doesn't know who Chris Middleton is. So a little name recognition and a little bit of a slump could get you as Chris Middleton as a buy low candidate. Tyler, why are you interested in Chris Middleton right now?
Well, there's the narrative end of it. So he got benched in their next to the last game against the Knicks, only played 19 minutes. And then they played again on Wednesday night against the Pistons, and he didn't play because of a personal reason. So some people might be looking at that situation as like, oh man, Middleton's, turning out of favor for the Bucks, and they're moving away from him. So that you can maybe breed that narrative just a little bit. Really, the main reason that Middleton is a buy low is he's just not getting as many shot attempts. He's not getting as many minutes as he did last season, which should be a surprise with the new coach in town. But he's also not hitting his shots at the rate he has basically for his entire career. So you got to think the points tick back up a little bit. His steals are a little bit down. The assists and the rebounds are about where they should be. But you got the narrative of, he's not been playing a ton lately. And then you got the secondary narrative of he's basically been missing his shots a little bit more than he should be. I think Middleton's a pretty safe 20-point per game guy. And here's the other thing about Middleton, like you mentioned it. I just think that a lot of people underrated Middleton even from the start of the season. I think he was drafted a little bit too low. And so you could buy low on a player who was already going too low and might get yourself a real big steal here.
Yeah, over the last actually couple of weeks, if not a month, his steals have been a little bit down, along with his points and 3-pointers. Only like a fraction, and his shooting has gone way down, especially recently. And that does, as you were saying, feel like a very temporary thing. Chris Middleton is an outstanding player, very underrated. Is worth, really, I'd say, if it wasn't for Giannis, we would be talking about Chris Middleton, because he would be leading, I think, this Bucks team to a low playoff seed, because I think he is that good. He's in a contract year and should probably get a fairly large contract from a team that's in the know. But maybe he'll end up back in Milwaukee. But if he's in the doghouse right now, that's not a great sign. But I just feel like it's temporary. I don't think the Bucks are trying to sabotage their season by sitting Chris Middleton for more than a couple games.
Yeah, I mean, tonight was a personal thing, and the other one was he admitted that him and the coach just kind of had a disagreement on what he should have been doing, and so he got benched. And I think that happens to even some of the best players throughout a season, right? Like it's just, things don't always go your way. And I'm not worried at all about Middleton. I mean, I think he's a top 30 player easily. So
yeah, 0% worried about old Chris Middleton. Let's talk about another guy here. You get a lot of the Nuggets players on your list this week, Tyler. But this Nuggets player here, he's actually set, I think, for a very good kind of few weeks here moving forward, and that's Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray has not played exceptionally well to start the season, but with the injury to Gary Harris, should probably see a huge uptick, and has over the last 2 games in not just usage, but in scoring and assists. So we might be a little late in the buy low when it comes to Jamal Murray, but if you look at what he is currently ranked overall in the season per 9 category, he is 108th overall, and he is shooting 41, almost 42% for the season, which is under his career average, though it's not like he has a huge career to fall back on. Still under the average that he normally shoots.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is the threes, right? He's only making 31% of his threes, taking 5 attempts a game, and he's a career 35% 3-point shooter. You got to think he starts hitting a few more threes. He starts hitting a few more from the field. If he gets back to the 45 he shot last year and the 37 on 3-pointers, he's pushing pretty close to 20 points a game. He needs to get that steal back. He's only getting 0.8 for the year. If he can get back up to a steal a game, those numbers are looking quite tasty for Mr. Jamal Murray.
Yeah, he finished last year overall per game at 58 with almost 17 points, 2 3-pointers, and a steal a game, and kind of felt like he was due for maybe a little bit of a breakout. I think some people drafted him a little bit higher than his just kind of overall value. Is probably his like average bell curve value. They're drafting him on the top end of that bell curve, and he has definitely played in the bottom part of that bell curve so far. It's a long season. It's only been 24 games for Jamal Murray's belt this season. And if he reverts back to something close to last year, you could probably end up snagging him up for into like kind of an end of the bench or middling like low starter right now, and end up with a guy who ends up being in that 40 to 60, 40 to 70 plateau by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, if he can snag 20 points a game, he's probably trending in the upside of that, right? That he might even be a top 40 player this season. He's shown some growth in his rebounds and assists, and a lot of that has to do with he's just playing a few more minutes. And I mean, we talk about 3rd-year breakouts all the time. I mean, that's a common thing, and even 4th-year breakouts. So I think Murray's still probably getting better. He's only 21 years old. Yeah, I think this kid could be on the upswing, and I think he's probably about as low as it's going to get right now. So if you can buy him, now's the time.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And speaking of the Nuggets, Gary Harris on the other end of that, the reason that Jamal Murray is probably about to have some incredibly good stat lines out. Gary Harris is out with a hip issue, probably going to miss a few days. It sounds like he is getting he got an MRI. Am I reading this correctly?
I believe he did, and
negative.
I don't think anything sounded super bad about this hip injury at this point. Would we be surprised if he missed a few games? No. I don't think, though, that he's going to miss like months. And that's maybe another reason why he's a guy on this list to buy is, okay, he's got a little bit of a bump. he missed the game. He's going to miss a couple games here, whatever. That's good. That's cool, but he's also not playing his best right now. Like, I mean, his points are down from last year. His steals are down from last year. His shooting percentages are also way down from last year, just like Jamal Murray. So, Gary Harris is another guy. If I can buy him for, a player outside the top 50, and I think Gary Harris is definitely a top 50 player the rest of the season. So I think this is another guy where you probably get some good value just by trying to buy him.
Yeah, he's definitely struggled, and I think especially recently with the hip issue, that it has not helped him shoot well, nor has it helped him be athletic enough to get to be a consistent contributor on the fantasy side. You can kind of see here that Gary Harris does rely on being pretty good at most of things. So his 9 cat per game value right now is 71 on the season. Last year, it was 30. And that's because he was almost averaging 2 steals a game and getting about 17 points a game. And all of that is actually down from last year. His threes are down as well, as Tyler was saying. And all of that's, to me, a fairly big surprise because as a roto player, Gary Harris is well undervalued when it comes to his normal production. And he has not even been close to his normal production. And I don't know if that's a lingering injury issue, but also goes to show you that like he is a top 40, top 50 player when he's hitting everything across the board. When he drops, when those steals drop and the points drop a little bit and the assists drop a little bit, then he's suddenly down at the bottom of that plateau. And that's exactly almost a perfect example of that 40 to 70 plateau. Is that when you got everything going for you, you're at the top of it, and when everything drops just a tad bit, you could be at the bottom of that plateau and be the 71st ranked player.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's how it works. But I mean, I think this guy vaults back up, and the whole reason is it's just been poor shooting, and I think we see this all the time, right? The more shots, the closer you get to your career percentages. And this is a guy who shot over 40% from 3 if you combine the last 2 years on a large volume of attempts. And now he's all of a sudden, shooting 32, right? So over 40 down to 32, like that just doesn't seem like it's going to stick. And maybe this, he's been hampered by a few different little injuries here. He's only played 21 games. So he's missed some time on and off. And I don't know. I just don't really feel like I know people are panicking on him like, oh, man, he's been killing me. He's been shooting bad percentages. Like, okay, so it's been 20 games. Like, I think that's going to turn around any day.
Yeah, I do think by the end of the season, he will be around that 50 mark. I'm not terribly worried about him. Another Denver Nugget on this list. You must have been watching quite a few Nuggets games over the last week or so. Is that what's been going on, Tyler?
Well, I don't know how that would help me for this guy because he's not playing. So
that is fairly correct. Will Barton about to return, but it feels like Will Barton has been about to return for a while now. Why is Will Barton on your buy low list?
So Will Barton only played 2 games this year, and he's due back within the next week from his injury. And so on November 29th, with his hip strain / right core is what the Nuggets are calling this injury, which is funny. On November 29th, Coach Malone said he'd probably be back in the next 2 weeks. So we waited a week already, so probably within the next week he'll be back. This is more your guy than mine. I've been skeptical about Will Barton for the last couple of years.
Well, you shouldn't have been, because Stephen Willie Barton over the last few years has been tearing up the court and has earned himself a starting role on this Denver Nuggets team.
Yeah, and when we look at this Nuggets team, like, they're not exceptionally deep, so there should be no one really to push Barton for minutes. So there's that tick. He was a top 50 player last year. I think that his field goal percentage might have been a little bit inflated last season, but playing with Jokic and Gary Harris and some other guys who can score the ball, more efficiently, that also may help Will Barton to, keep that field goal percentage this year. And here's the other thing, like, he was a player who surprisingly finished in the top 50 last year. If you think he can repeat that value, you definitely can get him at a discount. But even in drafts, like he was going at a little bit of a discount from that, right? Like he was going 60, 70, 80 in most drafts. So you could probably maybe even buy him at that level or a little bit lower. And if he produces similar value to last season, you got a nice deal on your hands there.
Yeah, if you can get him for like anyone in that second plateau, like 70 down, like 100% do that, because Will Barton, not only is he just has the ability to have a stretch of 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, where he is basically top 30 player. He ends up just doing enough across the board to help you in all sorts of stats, and could be just, once again, another top 50 player. He ends up doing it when he has the minutes, and he's good. Like Tyler says, he's going to get the minutes. There's not a lot of people competing for those minutes on the Denver Nuggets. So I've actually seen Will Barton on some waiver wires in some of my regular, just like standard 10-team leagues, and that is not acceptable. He wasn't on the waiver wire very long.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely shouldn't be. I mean, anyone who finished in the top 50 last year shouldn't. And Will Barton missed a month and a half, so he's going to ramp up slow. And so maybe you wait till he comes back at this point if the owner's not budging, and you wait till you see a couple of poor games. Because, I mean, I imagine things are going to start off great for him. He'll probably play like 20 minutes a game for the first couple of games, and then maybe you try to make the offer. But yeah, I mean, I think Will Barton, once he gets ramped up to speed, there's no one holding him back, so he should be pretty darn good.
He should be very good. Tyler, I have a curveball for you. I'm not going to talk about the last guy on this list. I am, in fact, going to talk about the hottest name in fantasy basketball right now, and talk about DeAnthony Melton for the Phoenix Suns. The Twitter was on fire. No surprise here that Fantasy B-Ball Reddit, with one game from anyone who is a point guard, especially a young point guard, blew up. Everybody's like, this is a must add, this is a must own. There's been a lot of questions about DeAnthony Melton being dropped and dropping people for DeAnthony Melton. Is DeAnthony Melton a must own? He had a 21.5 assists night in 23 minutes against the Sacramento Kings. I have not seen any news coming out of Phoenix, a poorly run franchise that has no idea what they're doing. On top of that, you got Booker hurt. Say anything about DeAnthony Melton getting a starting job, playing 30-plus minutes a night. I haven't seen anything about that. So I don't understand the hype, other than it's just hype.
Well, he made every shot. I mean, he was 9 of 12 in that game. He had 21 points. So a lot of it was because they got blown out by the Suns. They got blown out by the Suns. They got blown out by the Kings. I'm sorry. They are the Suns. So they had a 38-point fourth period, and they won the fourth period by 15 points, yet they still managed to lose the game by 17 points. So they were down by 32 points at the end of the third quarter. And Melton came in, and he played well, and he hit his shots, and he was plus 24 on the game, in the plus-minus. They've clearly shown that he's behind Elliot Kobo, even Jamal Crawford in the rotation. Sure, you can pick him up if you want, but I'm going to not, because I don't even know in the next game that he plays a minute. Like, if they're not losing by 30, does he even get a minute? Yeah,
like, this is I need someone to stream kind of pickup, not great, I found the point guard of the future for the rest of the season. Mike, we don't know what's be going on in the Phoenix Suns in a month and a half from now. We have no idea.
So I'm gonna play. Let's play a guessing game. You ready for this?
Sure.
Okay. In the Suns' last 8 games.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 games before that game against Sacramento. Would you like to guess how many minutes DeAnthony Melton played total?
DeAnthony Melton in the last 8 games. So I I just found out he played 23 minutes in the last game.
Yeah, so we'll exclude that. We'll do the 8 games directly before that one.
Okay, I'm gonna guess he played like over 10 to 15 minutes each one of those games. So I'm gonna give him like 102 minutes.
He played 12 and a half minutes total.
Not per game.
That is not per game. That is a total of 12 and a half minutes. He was a DNP, coach's decision, in 6 consecutive games. And then he played 4 minutes and 16 seconds against the Magic, which they also lost by 14 points. And he played 8 minutes and 13 seconds in a 24-point loss to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, that's about 100 minutes less than I thought. That's pretty bad. And that's not a guy I'm gonna jump on. I'm sorry. I don't know what the hype is about. I'm out on that completely.
Well, and here's the other thing to say too. So they lost by 30 against the Spurs on Halloween night, and he played 19 minutes and 45 seconds. Then he was a DNP CD for 6 consecutive games. And he played 10 minutes in one game that they won by 20 and 9 minutes in a game that they lost by 10. And then he was inactive for another 6 games.
Yeah. That's we harp on that quite a bit on this show, that minutes per game are the most important stat. Guys, do not be dropping anybody who's playing more than 28 minutes a game, or anyone who's like semi-valuable, just to take a flyer on Melton. If you want to take a flyer on Melton, the guy you're dropping better be pretty expendable.
You know whether I'd take a flyer on Melton right now? Is like a deep league, like a 16, 18, 20 team league where okay, he showed me he can do something if he gets minutes. But even look at the rest of his games. Okay, so that one he played 19, he had 7 points, he had 2 rebounds, he had an assist, he had 3 steals, and he had a block. Okay, that's good. I mean, the steals and blocks are great, but there's not much else.
There is not much else there. I completely agree with you.
And
I think that is it. Oh, go ahead.
Every other game, though, he's gotten you 3 points or 0 points in every other game he's played, and he's not gotten you any steals or blocks in any of those games.
Yeah, even if you played 32 minutes, what is his fantasy ceiling? And he could get some assists. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's just not much here. I don't know why people are excited about that.
I do not know either. No clue. I think that is it for the Buy Low segment this week. Tyler, do you have anything you want to plug?
So not really. I'll save the plug for today.
Not a thing. Well, you know what? I'm going to plug something for you. At Tyler P. Watts is Tyler's Twitter handle. He is writing a bunch of stuff for one of the all-time greats, Luka Doncic. Already, everybody's crowning him as a basically an all-star, possible greatest of all time. Maybe a little too soon on that, but the dude is achieving things that only some of the top players have ever achieved in his 19th year being alive on planet Earth. So props to Luka Doncic. And if you want to learn more about how he is revolutionizing that Mavericks team, go check out at Tyler P. Watts. Along with all the other cool fancy stuff that Tyler writes, a lot of interesting and very helpful articles. And Tyler's posted them all on his Twitter, so go check that out. You can find me at Watch the Box. Wait, no, Watch the Boxes. I forgot my own Twitter handle. That's not good. And that's because I'm not posting anything helpful. I'm just retweeting and talking shit to people. So if you like that, follow me at Watch the Boxes. Or if you want to help out the show or join the Listener League, that's going to be picking up that draft here in about 10, 12 days. Go to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes and subscribe, and we will get you into that Listener League. Or if you just want to support the show, but either way, you'll get exclusive content, including access to the weekly pods before they are released on the actual podcast stream. So check that out, patreon.com/watchingtheboxes, and we will catch you next time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com, your home for the best fantasy basketball tools on the internet and possibly of all for the history of mankind. We can't prove that at some point in the past, maybe in BC times, that the Egyptians did not have a better fantasy basketball tools like what are those things called? Where there's slide rulers, the acubuses. That's not the right word. We can't prove that because we don't know enough about the ancient Egyptians. But what we do know is that right now on the internet, the best fantasy basketball tools are on #basketball.com. Go check that out. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
So you think ancient Egyptians were like taking the work break from building the pyramids and just playing some basketball? Is that what you think, Mike?
I mean, it's certainly possible. They could weave baskets, right? So like, it could be something like on Ancient Aliens. Maybe the aliens came down and taught them how to play basketball. It was like the first Space Jam, basically.
Oh man, you've thought a lot about this. I don't have much to come back on that.
Yeah, I might or might not have been watching too many Ancient Aliens. What's the word I can't say? It's not Acubus, but it's really close.
I don't know. What's the word you can't say? I was thinking about like every player is in the NBA's name ever.
Well, other than all of the foreign-born and not foreign-born players, like just everybody, completely everywhere. Abacus. That's the word I'm looking for. An abacus.
Abbott and Costello. What?
People, if anyone is into old Chinese slide rules, actually they had them like abacuses all over the world, including back in Mesopotamia in the 2300 to 2700 BC. There were abacuses found from Mesopotamia. So props to people doing math way back in the day. I respect them. But guys, if you're doing math now, don't use one of those. We got computers. We don't need that.
Is this a history lesson with Mike Catron?
Yeah, I'm on Wikipedia because I had to figure out what that damn word was because I was like, I know that's a real word, but I can't find it in my brain because I'm getting old and senile and I possibly have been drinking too much. So
wait, you could spell that word, but you couldn't say it?
Yeah, yes. I have problems.
Why am I not surprised?
I don't know how my brain works, but neither do the doctors. So on that note,
the doctors, neither does anyone.
Yeah, nobody knows how I got to this place in the world. But most people aren't here for a history lesson, Tyler. They're here to find out who we are selling high on across the this week in fantasy basketball. And the first guy that you got on this list is a guy that I actually like. I think he's playing very well. I like his production so far, and I'm not sure if he is my favorite sell high on this list, but Julius Randle has started out the season really well on a Pelicans team that has played also exceptionally well. And Tyler, why are you souring on Julius Randle?
So it doesn't really have a ton to do with Julius Randle himself. It has a lot to do with the fact that he doesn't really produce a ton of steals and blocks, and he produces a fat, juicy 18.3 points a game, which I'm not sure that holds up. I mean, I think that he's gotten some games where Mirotic has been out that have boosted his fantasy stock, and so, and Anthony Davis, I think, missed a game or two as well. So he's scoring a little bit more than I think he will at the end of the season. I think he probably falls into that kind of 16, 17 point a game range. But it's really mostly just the fact that he gets overblown, and he always seems to have a little bit more perceived value than actual value because he gets you half a steal and half a block a game, and that's it. And I think you could probably sell someone like Julius Randle for a player who's giving you more actual fantasy value.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers don't lie. Get your abacus out right now to figure this one out. But per game, 9-cat, Roto League, he's the 81st player. And actually, that's lower than I thought he would be. And it is, even I'm being tricked by the 19 points, the 10 rebounds, because those are they're double-digit It's just psychology. Double digits look better. And I think you're 100% right that people can be tricked, that they're like, whoa, 19 points and 10 rebounds. Like, that's really, really good. And you know what? For those categories, if that's exactly what you need, those are really good categories. But most people need a little bit more production. I mean, Enes Kanter is an incredibly similar player, and I'd rather have Enes Kanter. His percentages are better. Both percentages are better. And I think even Enes Kanter does a little bit more. Though I guess Julius Randle does hit some threes. But like I'm saying, like both of those guys kind of trick people when every once in a while they get like a 20 rebound game. And you're like, oh, damn, that guy's great. No, he got 20 rebounds and that is great. But he didn't get any steals. He didn't get any blocks. And he hasn't in like 3 or 4 games. And overall, like by the end of the season, he's not as valuable as some of those guys who can get you stats across the board.
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't know, maybe it's because he got drafted by the Lakers, or maybe he just got a big fan base from playing for Kentucky, or I don't know what exactly it is. But
people really do like Julius Randle. You're right.
Yeah, I feel like he always just has like a lot of – and people ask me questions of like, who would you rather have the rest of the season, Ricky Rubio or Julius Randle? And I'm like, is this a debate? Like, I don't see the reasoning why we're debating this because it's not close. And I get an Otto Porter. I got a couple questions about him and an Otto Porter, and I'm like, I'd much rather have Otto Porter.
Yeah, Otto Porter by like a mile.
So yeah, I mean, maybe I don't really know what it is, but I think that Julius Randle's a great sell high. Maybe one of the better sell highs actually, just in the sense that okay, he might still produce those stats, but he just has this perceived value that isn't actual.
Yeah, in fact, he might be one of those guys that you can throw in on a trade as like your second player, and people are like, "Oh, damn, I'm getting both this person and Julius Randle. That's awesome. That is like two upgrades." And in fact, that you're kind of swindling the person because Julius Randle really not that good if you got your points and your rebounds already on lockdown. And this next guy has been having his points and rebounds on lockdown all season long. Clint Capella is just a destroyer of worlds, murdering human beings on the court. They're not even calling fouls, let alone arresting them. He's averaging 18 points and 12 rebounds and over 2 blocks a game. He's actually in the last few weeks, he's like 20 and 13 with 3 blocks. Like he's shooting 70% right now. He's playing out of his mind in the last month. Tyler, like, doesn't feel sustainable for Clint Capella, but here he is doing it right now. He's the 16th ranked player per game right now in NineCat head-to-head, or excuse me, NineCat Roto. Well, you know what I mean. Tyler, why are you trying to sell high on what could be Clint Capella's breakout year?
So, there's a lot of tracks we could take with this talk. There's a lot of reasons why I think Capella is a sell high. I'll go into the probably most obvious one first, and that's the fact that James Harden missed a couple games. Chris Paul missed. They both missed a lot of games, right? So if you look at the Rockets game so far, in over half the games that they played, either James Harden or Chris Paul didn't play. So obviously that means, those two guys, a lot of touches, a lot of shot opportunities. And some of those are just getting siphoned off to Capella. He's also playing a crazy 34.4 minutes a game, which for a center is kind of unheard of. And we're going to get into a secondary thing about that. But I think the whole thing is like they've just had a lot of injuries, and Nene has been out, who's the backup center, and plays like 15 minutes a game for the most part. And he missed every game this year so far, and he just came back within the last week here. And I think that's going to just knock the minutes down some, which that immediately is going to knock down the statistical production some, right? And then you got the whole thing of Chris Paul and James Harden probably both coming back and playing together for the foreseeable future. And that's going to knock down some shot attempts and just some statistical opportunities for Capella. So, kind of slam those two together, and you're probably looking at Capella more where you drafted him than like the 16th ranked player where he's playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in the last podcast, is that the reason we always kind of trust Mark Roberts' projections is because those projections analytically look at a player's historical production and says that person is going to probably produce pretty close to what that person's historical production is. There's always exceptions to those rules. This is if true, if this is who Clint Capella is, a huge exception to the rule. Like, he is way outperforming what he has done so far in his career. And even if he is having maybe a breakout season, this level of production feels unsustainable. He might drop down to something that is still his career best, but keeping 20 and 13 with 3 blocks up seems like just doesn't seem like it's going to continue. But I would want something very, very valuable for someone like Clint Capella, because there's not a lot of players who do what Clint Capella does.
Okay, so let's take a look here at some guys that I might be able to convince you on, Mike. How does that sound?
Yeah, let's play. Who does Mike want to trade Clint Capella for?
Okay, so let's see here. So, are we assuming you have Capella, or you?
I have Capella.
Okay.
I'm trading him away. I'm selling high on him.
Okay, John Wall.
No. My affinity. Well, how I play a lot of roto leagues, and Clint Capella, while does hurt you a little bit in roto leagues, John Wall really hurts you in those roto leagues.
So if we take the turnovers off and we look at total value instead of per game, which John Wall has played one more game, who are you saying is ranked higher for the season, Mr. Clint Capella or Mr. John Wall?
If you take turnovers off, I'm going to say Clint Capella.
John Wall is actually ranked higher, which is why you're wrong about this.
That is very surprising.
So I will say another man, Mr. Robert Covington.
Ooh, come on. Like, that's not fair. You know how much we love Beautiful Bob on this podcast. So it's hard trying to trade a center like this and not get back center stats. But in this particular case, I probably would go. If Clint Capella was my only big, I'm gonna have to say no. But if I'm steady with my big man stats, I'm gonna say I'm going with Beautiful Bob Covington, who's having one of the best years of his career.
Yeah, and he's ranked 18th in 8 category leagues this year on total gap value. So that's probably another guy who is playing a little bit over his head, and that's partially due to the block numbers. But yeah, so he's actually ranked ahead of Capella too. Now we're going to look at a few men ranked behind Clint Capella this season. The first and most obvious man that you would probably definitely trade for would be Mr. Ben Simmons, who is number 27, and Clint Capella is number 25.
I do love Ben Simmons, but you need a particular build to have Ben Simmons on your team.
Don't you have that build with Clint Capella though? I mean,
but why am I trading away Clint Capella for Ben Simmons if I want both of them on my same team?
Because you can get 8 assists. I mean, you're basically trading the blocks for the assists.
Yeah, and I would do that. I would do that trade. I think that's fair.
Well, and here's the other thing too about it. Like, who's going to average more points per game this season, Capella or Simmons? Like, if I'm gonna bet the rest of the way, I'm gonna bet on Simmons. Capella is doing it right now, right? But like, if you're telling me wipe those stats clean and just the rest of the season, I think Simmons scores 15, and I think Capella probably is lucky to get to 15.
I think it's a toss-up. I actually might give it to Capella, but I think you're right. I think it's a toss-up there, and Ben Simmons does some extra things that Clint Capella doesn't, and vice versa. So I think that's like I said, fair trade.
Chris Middleton, who is actually ranked 33rd on the season.
Let's see. Why are you picking all the guys that I love?
Well, I got to make you make the trade, Mike. I mean, come on.
This is a tough one. I love Chris Middleton, but like I said, hard to replace someone like Clint Capella. So actually still might go Clint Capella here. That's a tough one.
And I can understand that. I would go Middleton just because I think Middleton's on his way up, Capella's on his way down. And here's the way I sometimes look at trades, like maybe I got the best out of this guy, and now maybe I can get the best out of somebody else. And if I'm smashing two people's bests together, you know what I mean? Then that's a super hybrid player, right? That's somebody on steroids.
Well, here's a guy I definitely would trade Clint Capella for, and he's also one of our sell high guys, Rudy Gobert. I actually think Rudy Gobert. I don't know if he's a sell high guy. Like I'm surprised you have Rudy Gobert on the list. I think Rudy Gobert is great. Rudy Gobert does a lot of the things that Clint Capella does. But I actually think Rudy Gobert
is definitely better than Clint Capella.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm surprised you got him on your sell high list because I actually feel like Rudy Gobert could play better, even though he is currently per game in 9K the 22nd ranked player. Why are you selling high on old Rudy?
Well, so he's played in the last 2 seasons. He had one healthy year, and he played 60 and 56 games. So there's that. Now, it's not really the main reason I'm doing it, but I just feel with a lot of centers, there's always some risk that they get hurt. And I mean, I don't have really a ton of information to back this up. I've never really done the study, but it seems to me that elite big men get hurt a little bit more than elite guards and wings. And we see that with guys like Blake Griffin, right? And so I think that we see the big guys get hurt a little bit more. So there's that. And that's not really the main argument I'm going to make, but I just like to throw that out there as why I'm always a little bit more willing to sell high on a big than on a guard.
That's true. That's true. Like Rudy Gobert has seen some injury issues, especially last year. But this is supposed to be kind of his breakout season, and I feel like he's on his way. Like I think this is what we've been looking for from Rudy Gobert.
Well, here's the reality. Like he's not. I mean, he's scoring a little bit more, but he's doing a very similar thing to what he did 2 seasons ago when he played 81 games and he was a top, you know what? He was a top like 10, 15, 20 pick last year. So we've seen Rudy Gobert do this in the past. So
yeah, he was actually ranked 23rd overall 2 years ago when he played 81 games per game. He's ranked 22nd now in that 81 game season on totals, the 11th ranked player.
Yeah, and so some people are getting really, really excited about that, and they've seen it, and they're thinking, oh man, maybe the blocks even go up, and he's going to be this rebound monster, and he's scoring 15.5 points a game, which is a new career high, shooting 70%. And I think that's the reason you sell is like, can anybody really shoot 70% for the season? We've seen a very select few number of people do that in the history of the NBA, right? Shoot 70% for the season. So there's that part of it. I just don't know that he keeps getting the 8.6 shot attempts a game. Like, I think he probably falls down in those points, probably closer to 14 than to 15.5. And there's no guarantee that the rebounds are going to bounce up at all, or the rebounds are probably, you know, their max, and there's no guarantee that the blocks are going to bounce up at all. So we're looking at a guy who's just performing slightly over what he's probably going to do for the full season. And so this is your one shot to kind of sell him at the peak of his value. Now, granted, is Rudy Gobert probably still going to be really, really good for the rest of the season? Sure. But yeah, if I can snake somebody like a second round player that I think is just a little bit better, I think that's a move I want to make, because I think, just like I said earlier, right, I got the best out of what I think the best out of Rudy Gobert is.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you just made, Tyler, is that the sell high list isn't always like, okay, this guy is playing out of his mind, obviously sell him. Yeah, if you're in like a casual league, that's gonna work. But if you're playing with some people who've played before, are a little bit more experienced, they're gonna go, yeah, I'm not gonna trade you for Darren Collison, Kyrie Irving, even though they're ranked the same over the last week, you idiot. Like that's just not gonna happen. They're gonna see right through what you're trying to do. Rudy Gobert, on the other hand, is really, really good. He's supposed to be having a breakout year, and he's probably playing at his peak. So like not his like bell curve, like top of the peak, but the top of that bell curve that's within that middle, you know, that middle portion where it's like this is probably where he ends up this season, that variable that Mark Roberts allows. with the normal performance, Rudy Gobert is probably at the top of that. This is where he could finish. The best case scenario is Rudy Gobert plays like this the rest of the season. And that could happen. But if this is his peak, you are selling high. And if you are getting someone who is better or equal to where Rudy Gobert is playing now and Rudy Gobert drops off at all, you are getting the better end of that deal. And so if Rudy, especially if you have enough centers where Rudy Gobert is expendable on your team. So just because it's a sell high doesn't mean we're talking about obvious guys who are outperforming themselves. We are also talking about guys who are performing as they should, but are performing the best that they probably will for the season.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of when you make a move too, is like, I can maybe move this guy and get maybe somebody else's best. And I mean, I think that's just a good way to win.
Well, I see you wanted to, with these next two players, want to debate me into talking about the Chicago Bulls, the demise of Fred Hoiberg, good riddance, the Tibbs-like psychopathic stares of Jim Boylan, and also the fact that Zach LaVine, as if I didn't know, is playing well out of his mind. And I think this is a pretty good one to bring up because Zach LaVine, a lot of people have bought into it, and maybe it's just the Bulls' cynical homerism in me. I've never bought into Zach LaVine. I've gotten some trade offers for Zach LaVine, and I've just been like, no, I'm not trading for Zach LaVine. Like really, hardly anything in that top 50 range. Even though right now per game, Zach LaVine is the 51st player per Game 9 cat. I just don't trust. Number one, trust Zach LaVine, but number two, Bobby Portis, Larry Markkinen, and Chris Dunn all are coming back. Larry Markkinen's been playing for a few games. He's been looking pretty good. Will look better. He's just come slow back from the injury. And that means the grotesque utilization from Zach LaVine, which might have been one of the highest ones in the league, is going to go down. And that's going to hurt his value.
Oh, Zach LaVine is taking 19.5 field goal attempts per game on the season.
Note to the Bulls, that's too many. Pass the ball to Lowry Markkinen.
So I'll ask you a very simple mathematical statistical question here. Okay, how many players last season for the entire season? Now this is on Basketball Reference, so it doesn't take out people who like played limited amount of games and didn't qualify for the statistics, which is why I like to use it. Okay, especially for this type of statistic. So field goal attempts per game. How many people averaged even over 19?
Okay, I'm going to go with Russell Westbrook.
1.
James Harden.
2. You got the top 2 right there. 21 and 20.
Yeah, I know my shit. And hilariously, Tim Hardaway Jr.
No, he was not even in the top 20.
Damn.
So
right, who else is up there?
The other 6 men, there's 6 men who averaged over 19. LeBron, Damian Lillard, Anthony Davis, Devin Booker. That's it.
That all makes sense. All those make sense.
So even if you look, at 17 shot attempts a game, which is 2.5 less than what Zach LaVine has averaged so far this year, there were only 21 guys. 21 guys. So
he would be right now he's easily in the top 20 of shots per game. And he would be basically a top 3, top 4 guy, or top 10 guy at this rate. And it should Zach LaVine should not be taking that many shots. You've actually seen it go. His shots go down the small sample size theater, but have gone down with Lowry back now.
Well, and that's it. I think that was the whole reason that they were up so high
and the coaching change.
Well, but I think the bigger thing was that you were missing all of your other top scoring options, right?
Well, I'm going to throw this one out there too. When Chris Dunn comes back, there's actually going to be a point guard on the floor. Now, people might want to argue if Chris Dunn's a point guard, blah, blah, blah. Shut the hell up. I'm not talking about you right now. I'm talking about Chris Dunn. And he's going to actually bring the ball up the court. He's going to run plays instead of everything running through Zach LaVine, which seems to be Zach LaVine brings the ball up, Zach LaVine pounds the ball into the ground. Then he backs somebody in and takes a fadeaway from about 19 feet. Those plays will be less. And since those plays will be less, the utilization will be less as well.
Yeah, and we talked about before this kind of unsustainable block thing so the most blocks he's ever got in a season is 17, and he's got 15 already this year. So that's probably not really sustainable either.
Yeah.
So you got, okay, here's the main question. Assuming the Bulls get relatively healthy in the relative short term, does LaVine even average over 20 points a game for the rest of the season? So eliminate the 24 games we got right now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And just look at the rest.
Does he average more than 20 points a game? I think it's going to cut it fairly close. I'm going to say he does simply because I have the bet that Zach LaVine will be the high scorer on the Bulls, and Tyler is trying to trick me into losing that bet.
And see, I just don't think that he will, and that's no knock on him. It's just, we saw him in a year where he played 37 minutes a game, only averaged 18.9 points a game. I just don't really think he's a 20-point per game scorer. And I think when these other guys get healthy, they're going to siphon the shot attempts that they deserve. And he's one of the main men who's going to lose shot attempts.
And you know what? I actually really hope you are right, Tyler, because that means he will be learning how to play within a system, within a team, and will also be getting Wendell Carter Jr. and Larry Markin the ball more. And that would be, to me, it's a win-win. If that happens, the Bulls are developing. That's good. And if he doesn't, and he scores more than 20 points a game, he's leading scorer. Well, then I win our bet. So it's a win-win for me either way.
So here's the second, the third, the 10th question about Zach LaVine. Is he even a top 50 player going forward? And I will say that if you do 8 category leagues, he is the 21st ranked player on the season.
Okay. Yeah, if you're in a no turnover league, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say he will make that top 50. If you are in a 9-cat league, though, this is his peak. And with all these guys coming back, his usage is going to go down too. And that's why he's a sell high.
Yeah, see, I'm going to bet that he's even outside the top 50. I just don't like the other things that he does, save for points. And I think the points are going to go down. And I think the assists are also going to go down. I mean, he's averaging almost 5 assists a game. We've seen him be a 3-assist-a-game guy for basically his whole career. So I think when we get some other guys who can handle the ball and do some things, those numbers go down too. And that puts Zach LaVine outside my top 50. So I am selling him for even anybody inside the top 50. Throw me Ricky Rubio, throw me Jeff Teague, throw me anybody for Zach LaVine at this point, and I will accept that deal if I have Zach LaVine.
That is very fair. And I think we could also say a very similar argument for the other Bulls player on this list, Justin Holiday, who is playing attention other basketball teams who are obviously listening to our podcast. Justin Holiday is a really good player. I think he's at least worth a first-round pick if you want someone to come off your bench and be incredibly valuable. He plays good defense. He stays in front of guys. He's a really good three-point shooter. He's having a career year. And I really think you should give up a first-round pick for him. I think it's fair.
You're talking crazy, but this is a way more
unprotected first-round pick.
This is a way more important thing to say. What is Justin Holiday's nickname, according to Basketball Reference? Don't look. I want to see if Basketball Reference is telling the truth here.
I'm going to say the word sleepy is involved, or maybe he doesn't look like Slim Charles. One of the guys looks like Slim Charles. Might be Tony Sell. Tony Sell might look like Slim Charles. No, who looks like Slim Charles?
I've never heard of this nickname for Justin Holiday, and I think Basketball Reference is making this up. Mike, the noted Bulls fan, would know if he has a nickname.
He doesn't have a nickname.
His nickname, according to Basketball Reference, is the Fireman.
The Fireman.
Yeah, not the firefighter or the Fireman.
The Fireman. Like, is he fighting fires? Is he starting fires?
I don't know where this name came from.
Well, he's been on fire. Let's see how that's a professional segue. This season, hitting three-pointers a game. shooting a really good percentage from behind the arc, and doing all the other things like getting 1.7 steals, which would be a career high for him as well, over a half a block a game. I really do think he is playing himself, hopefully off the team for a unprotected first round pick. But another really good example, he's playing the best he possibly can. He's on a team that's about to has just changed coaching. Will change their play style, and we'll have 3 players who will come back who need minutes, even though none of them really, I think, slide into Justin Holiday's minutes. But still, that means touches away from Justin Holiday.
Well, and he's playing 35 minutes a game, which you got to think they just want to lessen that a little bit, right? Like, I don't think any coach really wants anyone to play 35 minutes a game. So I mean, even like
unless you're Tom Thibodeau or Tom Thibodeau's eerily similar clone, Jim Boylan, who is a psychopath.
So there's the other thing too. Like, we've just seen Justin Holiday not be that good until he came to Chicago, and he's 29 years old now. And sure, he's fine. He's not going to keep shooting what he's shooting because he's a career 39% shooter. So those numbers are going to flop down, and he's a league average 3-point shooter, not a 40% 3-point shooter like he's been this season. So all those numbers are going to flop down a little bit, and Justin Holiday is probably going to fall out of like must-own territory. So if you can sell him for literally anything, I would probably do that.
Yeah, you should be. I think you should be able to get a top 75 player for Justin Holiday. I really do. If he's going to be on the Bulls team for the rest of the year, which, like I said, he shouldn't be. He's going to have a role, and he's going to probably play 30-some minutes a game. And as long as he's like hitting some threes and getting some steals, he's going to be valuable enough, I think, to stay standard league relevant. But yeah, like top 75 players, I think he'll fall out of the top 75 by the end of the year.
He's the 31st ranked player right now, and if he's
incredible.
Well, that's on total value. So like some guys below him obviously have been hurt a little bit, but if he even stays in the top 100, I'll be pretty impressed. I mean, I'm looking at easily 100 men that I'd much rather have than Justin Holiday for the rest of the season.
Yeah, same here. I think there's quite a few people. Like I said, but shoot high, shoot your shot, guys. Justin Holiday playing out of his mind.
Well, and hey, man, if I'm selling a guy like Justin Holiday, I'm pointing to this. Like, okay, I'll read the 5 names directly below Justin Holiday in 8-category leagues so far this season: Klay Thompson, Chris Middleton, Blake Griffin, D'Angelo Russell, Mike Conley.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have gotten in a time machine this and gone back to last summer, because with your one trip, this is what you chose to do, and told me that list, I would have slapped you so damn hard, it would have sent you back in time to right now, and you would have been really upset at me about slapping you in the past, and I wouldn't understand what that was about because of time's not linear and different timelines and shit. So it makes no fucking sense.
Did you become a scientist like in the last 20 minutes?
You know what? I'm a computer scientist, y'all, and that's the best type of scientist, except for scientists who actually cure diseases and stuff. They're better scientists for sure. 100%.
Well, so you're the best type of scientist who's not a scientist? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? It's in the name of the degree, so technically, I think that means I'm a scientist. That's what I tell people, and I don't think people don't believe me when I say I'm a scientist of computers.
Well, I mean, I got 2 degrees that are bachelors of sciences, and they're in business. So I don't know.
I think that means you're a scientist. Scientist of business.
I don't think that's how that works.
Put it on your resume. If you guys are out there and you're studying really hard in college and you get that bachelor's of science, guys, put it on your resume that you're a scientist. It works every time.
Okay, I got nothing to say about that.
Well, I think that is it for our Sell High this week. Everybody out there, we would thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, rate and review us. It really helps us out, helps people find the show. Tell a friend, tell somebody in your league, because I know you might have the kind of have the up on the rest of the league because you're listening to the show and they aren't. But I got a little pro tip for you. If you go to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes and subscribe to become one of our Patreon, not only are you helping support the show, but you will get access to our weekly podcasts before all those regular listeners out there. No offense to the regular listeners who are definitely still listening. I shouldn't be talking shit about them. But if you want to get a little bit ahead of the game, go to patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. You can find me on Twitter at watchtheboxes. You can find Tyler at Tyler P. Watts. Guys, we like feedback for the show. We enjoy it. If you want to ask us questions, get a hold of us. If you want us to go in different directions, have more mailbag segments, talk about keeper leagues more often, let us know. Apparently not a lot of people want us to talk about keeper leagues because I've heard no feedback about keeper leagues. I've mostly heard about more listener questions, more trade talk, and actually people like the buy low sell high segments. So we're going to continue to do those throughout the week. Tyler, do you have anything else you want to plug?
No. I just want regular listeners to know Mike even talks crap on his own mother, so don't feel bad.
I talk shit about everybody who listens to the podcast, and even people who don't listen to the podcast. When I see them during the day, I talk shit to them too. So don't take it personally. But the only people I don't talk shit about are our Patreon subscribers. So go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes, and we will catch you next time.